Hi guys, Tiger Flash here, and here's my review of my first car, this first generation Nissan Versa sedan. So this particular model is a Canadian model, so it was sold in Canada from like 2006 to 2012. The sedan has ended in 2011 for Canadian market and has been redesigned for 2012, but the hatch remains the same in Canada, at least, and US for 2012. So this first generation model has been produced from like 2004 to 2015, depending on the country you live in. But in the US and Canada, it's more like 2006 to 2012, like I said. So this is my first car. So I've bought it in late 2019, and it had around 29,000 kilometers on the clock, and now it's at just over 68,000 kilometers. So I've put around 40,000 kilometers on this car since I owned it like 3.5 years ago, and honestly I've liked it. So this car is pretty clean. It was grandma owned, and I just want to do a little review in a car enthusiast perspective on these first generation Nissan Versa in sedan form or in hatchback form. So let's start with the mods I did on the car. So the first mod that I really did are those wheels and tires. So these are Kiowa wheels. So it's made in the USA, I think. At least it's a US brand. It's not a Canadian brand, and it's wrapped in Nokian Z-Line AS tire. So these are like performance summer tire, and it's in 215 45 R17, which I find to be really a perfect size for these first generation Nissan Versas, because it's a pretty small tire, so there's no issue with rubbing and things like that, but it's still big enough to give a pretty cool look. And I've added this Nismo sticker on one spoke of each wheels, so I really like that. So these are the first mods, and also for the brakes, of course, they're pretty small. Those are the stockies Nissan Versa brakes, and yeah, especially for the sedan, they're even smaller. So stopping power is not the best, but these are very good quality rotors and pads, at least for the consumer market. So I have no issue with brakings, but of course it's not a big brake, and I would like maybe to upgrade to bigger brakes sometimes. But the question is, of course I live in Canada, so I have to use this car in the winter, and I've used this car every winter since I've bought it. And as you can see, there's no rust on the car. These Versas are not really car that rust easily, but there's better car out there, but they're not that bad when it comes to rust. But as you can see, this car is like 15 years old, and there's no rust on the body, even though it's in Canada, and it has seen every winter since I've bought it, and the previous owner also used this car for winter. So as you can see here, though, those are drum brakes, so there's a bit of rust there. And like next week, I just bought some paint and some sandpaper, so I'm gonna be painting this in black. So those are the first mod, really wheel and tire, and I really like the Nismo badge I've put. So this is the S model, so it's the base. So you have some black door handle here, which I like for when it comes to the look of the car. But I have paint matching mirrors, which I don't. This car is optioned out with like automatic and AC. That's pretty much it. And I have here, as you can see, the grille. I have no chrome in front of the grille, which I like. I'm looking for a Nissan logo with here black and Nissan rated in red. So I'm really, if you guys have any idea where I can find this for the front and the rear, I'm definitely interested to find one of these. So also the headlights have been polished and they look brand new, which I like. And also, as you can see, this car has no fog, and I'm looking towards to install some fog light, probably some yellow lights in the near future. But of course, I want to be able to wire it correctly, which is a bit of a problem for me since this car is not even pre-wired like some Versas are, because this is a base model, so there's no wire to install the fog light beside this cover. So I'll have to figure it out myself, which I will do in the near future. And this grille is black also, which I like, because some Versa model have this grille paint matching color. So as you can see on the other side, these are also paint match, which is a hit or miss on Versa models. This particular base sedan has it, so I like it. It's different than black and it gives a good look. And also you have the black antenna, which I like. And here in the back, since this is the base model, you have the black like trim bar here, which I like. So let's talk about the other mods that I did on this car. So I have tinted windows. So here it's a 5% tint, so it's a very dark tint, but you can see still pretty well in the car. And those are 35 and 35. Why does it look to be more tinted in the back than the front? It's just because of the back glass, which is a 5%. So less sun is coming that way. So here it looks to be more tinted than in the front, but it's the same. And the other window is open, so that's why it does not appear to be tinted. So as you can see, windshield no tint, of course, it's illegal, and the window here is open. So other mods I did on the car, I've ordered this On & Co license plate. So from my boy TJ Hunt. So I'm a really big fan of TJ Hunt and Adam LZ. By the way, in the interior of this car, which is I try to keep pretty clean, I've bought this Hunt and LZ sticker, which was a limited edition sticker that ran like around 2 years ago. It was a collab between Adam LZ and TJ Hunt, so I've picked one up and I've put it there since. So also I've bought some Nismo badges. So here I had a dealer sticker, so I've removed it and I've put a Nismo sticker, which I like. It's not a sticker, it's really a badge. And also I've put one in the car. So as you can see, it looks like a limited edition car right here. So Nismo Nissan Motorsport. And I also bought the Nismo keychain, which I like. Okay, so those are pretty much it about the mods I did on the car. The last one that I really like is my exhaust. So this is just an exhaust tip, and it's a 4-inch pipe which come from a Dodge Ram around 2009. So those were the dual tips Dodge Ram, and this is one of the tips, so I have both. So if I lose this one, I will be able to find another one easily. I have another one. So how did I manage to put it on there? So it's just the stock exhaust. As you can see, exhaust on Versas are notorious to fail. I will talk more about that later on, but it's just a stock exhaust, and I've put an exhaust clamp and some exhaust sealant around the exhaust and a tie wrap, a zip tie, as you say in English, just to make sure it wouldn't put too much stress here around the weld and break my already broken exhaust. So that's how I did it. And honestly, it's been well. It's been on there for like 2 years, and I've put some heat dissipating sticker here, not to burn the bumper. And yeah, it's done pretty well. It's been there for like 2 years, and I like the looks that it gives. And also, there's a little cool sound that is made by this car because of the exhaust leak. But honestly, I leave it on there because it's a perfect leak I found, and it does just the perfect sound. So take a listen. So as you can see, it has a pretty deep rumble, and when I rev it out, it's pretty loud, which I like, and it's not like a broken car-y, it's like a good tone, which I like. And also I have a cold start of this car, which I will insert now. And now I'm alone, so I can't rev it up, but yeah, it has a pretty nice tone when I do rev it up. I don't know if I can try to just rev it a little bit. I have some radio on, saw this off. I don't know if you can hear something. Yeah, this is like a 3000 RPM rev. Yeah, it's pretty good. So honestly, I like it. So now I'm going to shut the car off, and I'm going to talk more about my experience about this car in particular, which I like, which I don't like, and what to look for when it comes to Nissan Versas and reliability issues and everything like that. So, like I said, I've bought this car around 3.5 years ago and used it for 3 winters. So first thing I'll talk about is winter capabilities. So these cars are front wheel drive. This particular model is the base model and has no ABS, so I can lock up the brakes really easily in winter. And it has rear drum brakes, which I'm going to paint, like I said, or even swap for disc brakes, which I would like, and I will try to do. I think you can fit some Sentra brake on around here, so I'll try to do that. So yeah, winter capabilities. I've driven this car around maybe 10,000 kilometers in the winter, and honestly it's been great. So grip is really good. I've never been stuck, and I'm in Quebec City, so it's a really good place to get stuck because there's a lot of snow here in Canada, and never got stuck. Brakes are good with no ABS. I like it. You can modulate yourself, which is fun. And yeah, it's a good car. It's a very confidence inspiring car. In the winter you sit up pretty high in the car, and the car is also pretty high for being a small like sedan. So yeah, you never get stuck in these, except if you have the CVT maybe, which I'll talk more about later, because CVTs have a tendency to have difficulty spinning the wheels when you're stuck in a snowbank. But this car being the 4-speed automatic, I never got stuck with this car. And I sometimes do a shovel for some people in the winter time, so I have to go out when it's very bad outside, and I've never got stuck with this car. So honestly, if winter is a concern with one of these, shouldn't be, because it's really a good car for winter. And it's not 4-wheel drive, but I kind of like it because it's confidence inspiring for beginner driver. So if you like give it too much throttle on ice, you'll just spin the front wheels, and the rear wheels will stay not spinning. So just the front will start moving and not the back, so you won't do an oversteer and crash into a snowbank. So I like it because it's really stable in winter. You can drive it slowly and really no issue. Brakes are good, and I like it for winter. So as you can see, when it comes to rust, it's pretty good, even though it has seen a lot of winters. But things will change now, because I don't want to use this car in winter anymore. I find it really clean, and I don't want it to rust. So I'll find probably a winter beater for this particular winter. So this car hopefully will be in my garage for this winter, and will not be beat up by the elements. So also, which I like here, just thinking about it, this black trim here gives a sporty look for this car. And as you can see, it's pretty high off the ground for a small car, so you won't get stuck in winter. Okay, so what tire did I use in winter? So this car, being the base model, it came with the 185/65 R14 tire for winter. So those are the tire that I use for winter time. So it's really smaller tire than these, but it's been great. I like it, and that's the reason why I couldn't fit some bigger brakes, because when I put my 14s on, it's basically tucked here on the rear caliper, and it's also tucked on this rear drum brake right here. But now, if I stop using this car for winter, I'll be able to upgrade the brakes to bigger brakes, which I want to do. So now let's talk about like summer capability and like comfort and everything. So in terms of comfort, I really like the seats that came in these Versas. So I'm gonna remove the key because it's annoying. So like I said, I really like the seat about these Versas. So they're a comfy seat, they're wide, and they have a good cushion. So I like the way you sit, and it's good for a long road trip. But there's not a lot of side bolstering, but you're very in a good seating position, and the headrest also is in the good place. So I like these seats. So they're comfortable, and I like the color of my interior being all black, basically, with no trim at all. So this is what I like. And when you're sitting in the Versa, like if I do, as you can see, you're sitting pretty high in the car, Like if you compare it to a Honda Civic or thing like that, you're definitely higher in a Versa. So it's almost like you're driving a minivan or an SUV. Not that much, but it's pretty a high seating position, and there's a lot of headroom in the ceiling. So I'll turn the camera around so you can see. So as you can see now, I flipped the camera and there's a lot of headroom, and I'm 6'3", so I'm a pretty tall guy. And as you can see, the position with the headrest is really good. I can even put it a bit higher, I think. And yeah, I really like to be sitting in this car. And when you close the door, there's plenty of space for your arms, for your knee. I like to be driving with the arm like that. And as you can see, for the knees, it's really good. If I press the pedal, I have really good knee placement, and it's not hitting right here, it's not hitting on the door right now. So plenty of space in one of these small cars, which I really like for comfort. So another thing I like about this car for comfort is the suspension. So it's struts in the front, and in the rear it's a single torsion beam. So as you can see now, I'm running a pretty low profile tire for a Versa, and even with those low profiles, it tends to ride really well. It suck up bumps really well, and handling is also pretty great for such a small car. So as you can see here, you have a single torsion beam in the back, so it's not an independent rear suspension, but honestly doesn't seem to hurt the car too much in terms of handling performance. So this car, at least on these fatter tire, being 215s, the grip is really good in corners for what it is, of course, and the low speed grip is really good. And even if you take like big highway off ramps and on ramps, you'll find that this car handles pretty well for what it is. And honestly, this is the thing that surprised me the most about this car, is the way it handles. So it soaks up bumps really well, it handles really great. So I won't really be able to demonstrate this on video, but honestly, when you drive this car, you can go pretty fast around corners, and this car is really forgiving. But the thing is, for example, if you drive a Civic, most Civics, you know, when you take a turn, you'll hear the front starting to understeer, so the front will slip. But this car, I find out that the limit is really high, because the front basically have infinite grip on this car, but the rear is what will bite you if you're too fast. Because I've seen one of those Versa taking a corner too fast, and honestly what tends to happen is the rear steps out in an oversteer fashion, and then you say hello to bushes. So you have to be careful not to overcook it, because you won't feel anything in the front going around, but it's the rear that will step out on you in most scenario if you go too fast into a corner, which is not the best thing for beginner drivers. But if you're more experienced, I know some people like it. So this car is definitely more rear steppy than front steppy when it comes to driving dynamics. So also, if I talk more about the interior of this car, what I have and what I don't have, this is pretty much one of the base model, like I said. And as you can see, you have a pretty big glove box right here, and it's pretty deep. It goes deep like this, so it's pretty a good sized glove box. And the seats are adjustable when it comes to this right here, so you can adjust by pressing around here, and you can also of course go backward and forward with the seat. But the seat won't go up and down, at least in this base model, which is a bit of a bummer, because I like a low driving position, so I would like to be able to put the seat down. Also, you have a traditional handbrake in this car, and in this particular car it's pretty strong. It will lock up the rear wheels, which I like, and I like that it's not a button and it's old school handbrake. Also, here you have a little pocket to put like your phone. It's really perfect size. So I'm wired in right now, so I cannot do it, but it's a really good size to be able to put your phone right here. I do it all the time. And here you have two cup holders, which are a good size for, you know, some antiseptic like alcohol and a bottle of water, anything you can want to be putting right here. There's no armrest in this base model, doesn't really bother me. So here the transmission, so these came in 2 engine choices and in like 4 transmission choices. So this is the 4-speed automatic. How can you tell that it's the 4-speed automatic? Because it's automatic shifter and you have 1, 2 and drive, not like low and other modes like that. This would be a CVT if you have L right here, but now it's a 1 and 2, so it's the 4-speed automatic. It's definitely the most reliable transmission when it comes to automatic transmission in Nissan Versas. So the CVT tends to have issues in those Versas, a little bit less in first gen than in the other generation of Versas, but there's still a lot of issues when it comes to CVT transmission in those Versa. So I would try to avoid the CVT transmission, and if you want an automatic, take like this, like me, like I did, a 4-speed automatic, which is 1, 2 and drive on the gear lever. So I've heard some pretty positive story about the CVTs too. I've heard they can last like 250,000 kilometers for some people, so it's not that bad, but I've also heard some horror stories, so I would stay away from CVTs. So what's the difference between a CVT and a traditional automatic? So a traditional automatic like this one, for example, have 4-speed and an overdrive. So when I drive the car, it shifts from like 1 to 2nd gear at like 20 kilometers an hour if I go slowly on the throttle, and it will have 4 gears, so it will basically play between those gears. If you have a CVT, it's basically a rubber belt made of metal, of course, that slips around 2 pulleys, and it goes bigger or smaller to adjust the gear ratio. So it's basically a single gear car if you have a CVT. So the sound is not the same if you are a car enthusiast. It will, like this traditional automatic will go wah, wah, like a traditional car, it will shift. But if you have a CVT, it will be more like wah, and it hold like the RPM at like 5,000 if you give it a lot of throttle, and the sound will be annoying, which I don't like. So other things about the interior of this car, you have 2 cup holder here, some penny holder which I don't use, and here this tester have AC as you can see, and I have window defrost. Here come the controls for the climate control, which are easy, you know, just 1 to 4. Here temperature, and here where you want to the air to be. So it's pretty easy right here. Here you have the hazard button. Okay, so here you have the radio. So the radio is pretty straightforward. It's a AM, FM, CD player radio, no Bluetooth, no aux jack. Some models have the aux jack right here if you have a bigger model than me, but this is the radio. And the speaker are all in the doors. So 2 in the front door and 2 in the back door. So there's no speaker over the trunk right here. Honestly, sound system isn't that bad for what it is. So you have to remember that this once was the American cheapest car you could buy. So for the cheapest car in America, honestly, the sound system is not that bad. So if you use the radio, yeah, it's pretty bad. But if you put a CD like I do, the sound is pretty good with some good bass, good mids, good low, at least for what it is. So I pretty like the radio system in this car. So here you have a little storage pocket right in front of the radio. I don't use it really much, but it's I have the same thing in my dad's 7th generation Honda Civic, and I find that I use it all the time. So yeah, I like it. So this car is also equipped with side airbags and 2 front airbag, which is good for safety, and those are pretty safe honestly when it comes to accident. So as you can see here, you have the sun visor with no mirror, because this is the base model. Even the driver has no mirror. And here you have your rear view mirror. As you can see, even if the window is tinted, you can still see pretty well. Doesn't really yeah, as you can see right now. Okay, so here you have automatic window and automatic power locks, which I like. and you have the door handle, easy to open the door. I like it. And in the door you have a storage cubby right here and a cup holder, which I like. Okay, so now stepping in the driver's seat, you have your horn right here. Pretty good looking steering wheel. I like it because it's the base, no button. I like it when there's no button when it comes to look. And here you have, of course, regular, like for the wiper, just put it up for one shot, and then 1, 2, 3 if you go down, and you can adjust here the intermittent settings like that. So that's pretty good. And here, of course, you have your turn signals, so up and down like any car, and you have your headlights, and I would like to have fog light, and here there's the brights, the high beams. So here is the gauge cluster of this particular Versa. So this is the pre-refresh gauge cluster, because after the refresh, like this, when it's on, it's orange. You cannot see right now, but the new one, like the 2009 to 2012, they have a white backlit cluster, and these being like 2006 to 2008, they have orange backseat cluster, orange backlight for the cluster. Honestly, I don't really have a preference, but I like the way it's laid down. It's easy to read, as you can see, like the RPM, the speed, and your fuel right now. So talking about the fuel gauge, what's the fuel economy of these cars? So if I'm honest, fuel economy on these are pretty bad for what it is. So for a small engine like these, like you have in one of these, it's honestly pretty bad. So you're looking around, if you do city driving, around 9 liters per 100 kilometers. So you can convert this in MPG if you want. And on the highway, if you go like 115 kilometers an hour like I do, so that's around maybe 73 kilometers, 75 miles an hour on the highway, you will do around 10 to 11 liters per 100 kilometers, which is not the best for a subcompact car. So it's not anything close to a Honda Civic or things like that, but this is with the worst transmission for fuel economy, the most reliable but the worst for fuel economy, the 4-speed automatic. So if you have the CVT, you'll do way better in terms of fuel economy. I've heard about around 6 to 8 liters per 100 kilometer, which is way better than this 4-speed auto, but of course it's less reliable. But now let's talk about the manuals. So I would like this car to be a 6-speed manual. Unfortunately, this car was an automatic. I didn't really choose it. This was the cleanest one I could find here in Canada, so I didn't really have the choice for the transmission. But I would like this car to be a 6-speed manual. So which manual were offered for these Versas? So you had two choice of manual transmission: the 6-speed manual, which was often paired in with the 1.8 liter engine, or the 5-speed manual, which was paired often with the 1.6 liter engine. So let's take a look at this engine bay just to see what's going on here. Let's go. Now we've opened the hood, and as you can see, electric mirror too, and electric windows. So under the hood, so the hood latch is right here, and you have to push like that to open it. And there you go. With the phone, it's pretty tough. So I put the hood strut. So the hood strut located here and here when you don't use it. So this is the engine in this car. So this is the HR16D engine. So they are, like I said, there's two choices, a 1.6 and a 1.8 engine. The 1.6 is producing 107 horsepower, and the 1.8 is producing 122 horsepower. So honestly, pretty moderate figures when it comes to cars, but for subcompact class, this is one of the best, at least back in like 07, 08. It was one of the more powerful engine you can have. So honestly, I find this car to be pretty good in terms of power. I would call this car to be peppy. So what do I mean by peppy? This car has a lot of torque because, for example, let's take the 1.8. I think it's 1.8 liter. It's like 122 horsepower and something like 128 pound-feet of torque. So both engines produce more torque than horsepower, which is important when it comes to driving the car in the city. So because these engines produce more torque than horsepower, I found that, for example, the first and second gear of this car is pretty strong. It will pull strongly to like 70 to 80 kilometers an hour. But when it shifts into third, now it's struggling a little bit more. So for example, in third, it's gonna take some time for the car to be able to catch highway speeds. And in fourth, it's even worse. So in fourth gear, if you're floored, it basically doesn't push at all. So that's the thing about these cars. I wouldn't call these cars to be really slow. Like, they're slow cars, but they're not the worst, honestly. For example, if you compare for a more mainstream car, for example, to a Civic. Let's compare it to a Civic, like a 96 to 2000 Civic or a 2001 to 2005 Civics. So the Civics with like 1.6, 1.7 engines, automatic transmission, the Civics that made around 106 to 115 horsepower, depending if you're talking about the 6th generation or the 7th generation. So if you compare to one of those Civics, I found these Nissan to be faster. Why are they faster? Because they have more torque down low. So when you press on the gas pedal, these Nissans will be faster than those older Civics just because of that. So yeah, as you can see, it's not really slow. It's comparable to like a Civic. I would say it's between a 1.7 liter Civic, so 2001 to 2005. It's faster than those, but it's slower than a 2006 to 2015 Civic, which used the 1.8 liter engine. So it's around in this ballpark. And even if you compare it to like the 1.8 liter Civic, it's a bit faster in first gear, but then when it shifted to second, third, fourth, and fifth, because the Civic has a fifth gear on its automatic transmission, this Versa is slower and has less like peak horsepower, which hurts it. But if you want a cool car for city, yeah, it's plenty fast. So as you can see, what you have under the hood. So here is your radiator cap, coolant reservoir, alternator. The battery is pretty big for what it is, so you don't really have battery problem in this car. Fuse box located right here. And as you can see here, if you want to change the oil, this particular engine has no plastic cover. I think it's been lost during the years. Here you can put some windshield washer. Here you can check your coolant level. So that's pretty much the basic here. If you want to check the oil, it's easy right here. Transmission oil, I think should be this one. So yeah, it's pretty easy and straightforward. If you want to change lights, so this car has some blue LEDs in terms of lights. So it's right here, like it's hard to see, but it's like this rubber thing here, and on the other side it's this rubber thing here. So it's pretty hard to change the headlight on these, but hey, it's a small car, small engine bay, which means it's pretty hard to change the headlights. So now let's walk around the back seat of this car. So last word on the transmission. Of course, if you want automatic, go 4-speed automatic, not CVT. If you want to save gas, go CVT, but know that you might have some issues with the transmission slipping. And if you want to have fun and a sporty driving experience, go with manual transmission, 5 or 6-speed manual, because they're pretty fun cars, and if they would be manual, I think you would have a great time. So the back seat, as you can see, pretty much the same door panel with the same texture. I really like it. And here you have a little cubby, again 2 speakers, door seals, and here the back of the seat, pretty clean, just like cheap seats, but honestly for the price point of this car, wow, it was really good. So here I have some sun in the lens, and as you can see here, the back seat, honestly plenty of room. This seat is moved all the way back, and look at the room that you still have. I can fit behind myself easily in this car. As you can see, I'm sitting and I have plenty of knee space, even though I'm sitting behind myself. And as for headroom, my head is not even touching the ceiling. I have about an inch of clearance. So really a lot of space in these Nissan Versas, in the front and in the back. They're really big cars for subcompact segment, which I like. So as you can see, back seat pretty clean. There's some like bench design here. I like it. So it's not a straight bench, it's like 2 seats separate like design, and I like it. Also, this car has a 60-40 split bench. So as you can see, it splits right here, and I can just lower one at a time like that. You just here, and boom, you have the trunk. So honestly, I like it. It's not a single bench that falls. It's really 60-40, which is fun for a cheap car such as these. And this is black also. All the interior is black with some red accents here. Just kidding, of course. But yeah, I like the color of this car. So as you can see here, if you have child seats, you can put it right here. Pretty handy. And you have here the big C-pillar. Honestly, it doesn't really cause problem with the visibility. So as you can see, the ride height of these, pretty high ride height, but hey, you won't hit any you won't break the car with puddles, and you won't hit any like snow or things like that. So that's the good thing about it. I would like one day to lower this car just to have a better look, but for now it's okay. So when it comes to the trunk, there's 3 ways to open the trunk. There's no trunk popper here in the door. As you can see, it's just hood latch and fuel. So there's no trunk anywhere here. And if I don't know what this is, I won't touch this. So as you can see, gas and brake pedal. So no clutch. I would like to have a clutch, and this car being manual, I would have so much fun driving this car. But hey, that's the way it is. So as you can see here, is the this is the button to change the gear selector, and here you have overdrive on and off. So what overdrive is, it's basically your 4th gear. So if you want the 4th gear to be off, for example, if you're towing something, or if you're going over steep hills, or if you want to go like downhill and use engine braking to slow the car down, you just press this button and the rev will go way up, and the car will slow itself down if you go downhill. And as you can see here, also some black accent on the bumper, which I like. So last, the trunk. So 3 ways to open the trunk. You have sticking the key right here, you have the button right here, and also you have your key fob with a trunk popper. So when you press the button right here, which is a favorite way of doing it, it opens like that, and then you can open it all the way. And as you can see, it reveals a big trunk. So there's a lot of sun again, but this trunk is really deep. As you can see, really deep. You can fit like 2 adults in this trunk easily. We've done it. As you can see, some scars of fitting adults. And yeah, honestly, big trunk. You can fit pretty much whatever you want in this trunk. It's a bit bigger than like a Honda Civic. So if you compare again to a Corolla or a Civic, this will have a bit of a bigger trunk than one of those. So yeah, no problem whatsoever with the trunk. And the hatch have a bit of smaller trunk, but again, you have the advantage of having the hatch design, so you can fit really high objects and long objects. So yeah, this is the trunk, and here's your trunk light. So pretty good design when it comes to the trunk. I like it. Okay, so what's next about this car? So the color. A lot of colors were available for these Versas, back in the day. So you have this silver color, which I like, and as you can see, it has a really good shine to it. Yeah, I really like the color of this car, honestly. So this is it, and you have here the black accents here. Yeah, this is black, but other is silver, and I really like the way this color shines. Really fun. So there was also a darker gray, and there were a blue, which was pretty good blue, honestly, for hatchback model. A red, which was pretty cool. You also had like some type of purple, which I don't really like. You have a beige with beige interior, honestly the worst. You have black, you have white, and I'm probably forgetting a few colors. But honestly, I think my top 3 picks for Versas would be this color, the light silver. It will be the blue, like the bright blue one, and not the like purplish blue, and the red. So these are my 3 favorite color for these Nissan Versas. White were also pretty good, but nah, I really prefer like those gray color or those red or blue color. So yeah, that's it. Okay, so now about reliability on these Nissan Versa. So what did I replace in the 3.5 years of ownership for this car? Honestly, not a lot. So the oil pan was leaking. I've replaced the gasket. Also, there was no gasket available, so I've put Permatex's gasket maker to make a gasket myself. And yeah, I've replaced the exhaust gasket also. So these Nissan Versa exhausts are notorious to fail. So as you can see, the gasket was like around here. There's like a gasket like there. So at some point there's a gasket, and it often fails in the front of those Nissan Versa. So it has happened to me. So I've replaced it with a new gasket, and boom, as good as new, no more sounds. So this was one of the issues. Honestly, the whole exhaust system from the intake manifold to the exhaust tip is pretty bad on these Versas. So yeah, definitely not the best exhaust system when it comes to these cars. As you saw earlier in the video, there is a hole in my muffler, so I'll have to address that soon enough. But for now, it does a cool sound, so I'll keep it like that. And when it will go, I'll maybe do a 3.5-inch pipe from front to back, just to keep a cool sound. So also, what did I replace on this car? I've replaced both front wheel bearings and both front tie rods. So they often go bad on these Nissan Versa, so I had to replace both bearings and both tie rods, as you can see if you go under the car. So it's not a tie rod, it's really like this thing, but I don't know how to call it in English. It's this thing and the wheel bearing. So the tie rod would be this, I think. So it's not the tie rod, but hey, it's this part. It often go bad on these Versa, so I've replaced them on both sides when it comes to the front. For the rear, as of now, I've did nothing. Other common issue with Versa that I did not experience, you have some engine oil consumption. So when the engine starts to be older, it has a tendency to develop some slack in the timing and also to burn some oils. But hey, it's not that bad, honestly. The issue is pretty minor, and it occurs at like 300,000 kilometers, so basically way when the life of the car is over. So I wouldn't be very worried with those engines. They're solid engines. Of course, they have issues like every engine, but they will occur most likely when the car will be pretty old. So I wouldn't worry with the engine. Just if you hear some ticking noise when you start the car, then it might be a sign if it's too loud that the engine is on its way out. But I wouldn't be worried about the engine. So when it comes to transmission, as I said, the CVT is the one to look for when it comes to issues. So other than the CVT, both manuals and the 4-speed auto are pretty great. So other common issue on these Versas were the suspension. Most problems occurred on the hatchback model. So this sedan model have a different suspension than the hatch models. So the sedan has a higher ride height. As you can see, it's pretty high, and also the shock is smaller on the sedan. So if you have the hatch, you might have some suspension problem, but honestly, it's not really that bad, and I wouldn't be worried. These cars are pretty solid overall when it comes to reliability, and there's some, like, of course everything can fail on your car, but it's pretty reliable. Okay, one thing to know about these is the bolt pattern, because it's pretty unique. So as you can see, these are universal wheels with 4 long nut, because these are 4 long nut. They don't have a 5 pattern. So as you can see, most 4 bolt setup would have a 4x100 setup. As you can see here, those are 4x100 setup, but these they have 4x114 setup. So as you can see, both are like more spaced out than normal 4x100 setup. So this is pretty unique when it comes to these models. So just one thing to know, that you have to use 4x114 wheels to be able to fit on these Versas, because they are a bit less common, but it's doable. Okay, so driving one of these first generation Nissan Versa. So let's buckle up and start the car. So when you start the car, as you can see, it will idle around a bit less than 1000 RPM. Just before, that's because I just started the car, so it's a bit higher. Now you can release the parking brake, put the car in drive, and wish it was a manual. Just kidding. And okay, so just cruising along in this car. So it's really comfortable. So if I close the window, there's not a lot of noise that come in this car, honestly. It's a very quiet car. It's easy to look at. So if you look in the mirrors, you can see everything in the back window. So it's a really easy car to go. It's a good city car. It's small, easy to park. As you can see, not a lot of sound and not a lot of shaking, which I really like. And yeah, it's just a comfortable experience when you just want to cruise down the highway, or like cruise to the store. So I like it. As you can see, good turning radius, even with those 17-inch tires. Very quiet. So when you're on the highway, which I can do because it's illegal to film while running down the highway, but you'll be looking at around 3000 RPM at 120 kilometers an hour. So if you look, 120 is more like a bit less than 80 miles an hour, more like 75. So you're looking at 3000 RPM at 75 miles an hour with at least this 4-speed automatic transmission, which honestly I find to be a bit high, and that's why the fuel economy is not that great for this car. It's because the engine is revving way too high on the highway. That hurts the fuel economy, and that makes the car run like 10 to 11 liters per 100 kilometers if you go like 120, 125 kilometers an hour. But you can do less. Of course, you can do like maybe 8 or 9 if you go like 105, 110, and it's even doable to do some 7 liter per 100 kilometers if you go like 60 miles an hour and do not go any faster, because at 60 you're looking at around 2400 RPM, which really helps with fuel economy. So now, as you can see, I'm going to turn right here. Look how quiet it is, and put the car in reverse. Easy to look in the mirror. very quiet experience. And shift the car back in drive. So it's really comfortable. Seats are so comfortable. Suspension is great. Handling is great. So as you can see, if I go a bit faster around these posts, of course I'm one-handed, but as you can see, it's pretty easy to toss around, as you saw. So here, some good grip for this car. And as you can see, some good braking power, good turning. So yeah, nothing to say about the handling of this car. Honestly, it's great. Always been great. And pretty much always will be. So we have a motorcyclist here that's trying to take some pictures on top of his bike, so I'll leave them alone and we'll go downstairs. So yeah, really great handling car. I like it. Easy to drive, quiet. So as you can see here, they're taking some pictures. Hello guys, pretty dope. And I'm gonna open the window. And here over a bump, pretty quiet. Really a good experience. Not bumpy, not rough. Ride is great. Honestly, I like it. For cheapest car in America, it's insane how good it is. So here you have a big bump. Look, it took it like it was nothing. I'm gonna give it a bit of gas right here. That was like a half throttle. And as you can see, it's not that slow, honestly. For like half throttle, it's not that slow. And I don't want to go too fast here because we're in the parking lot. We don't want to get arrested. But like if I give it a bit of throttle, it goes, man. Honestly, it goes. It's just like if you go more than, I would say, 80 kilometers an hour, then it starts struggling a little bit. But I always cruise at like 115, 120. No issue at all. Even when you go 115, if you give a bit of gas, it won't downshift. It will just accelerate slowly. And yeah, you get you up there to like, if you want to go 140, it will do it, you know. It's a really good car. As you can see, the orange gauges right here, which I like. So yeah, I would say it's very a comfortable car. I can't really drive it spiritively where I am right now, but believe me, it's a good handling, it's good brakes. So if you're gonna go here, just press the brake, it stops like right on. It's not insane because there's some smaller rotors, so if you go really quick, like 100 something kilometers an hour, you have more difficulty slowing the car down just because of the size of the rotor. But for what it is, man, it's surprising how good it can handle, how good it can ride, and basically how good of a car it is. So yeah, if you're looking for a easy to toss around car, something that you can really drive without being worried about crashing, because it's a pretty slow car, it's a stable car, I would say that one of these is one of your best bet for at least starting and learning how to drive. So I'm really happy with my purchase, and I would recommend this to anybody who's looking for a fun first car. So why do I think this car is fun? Well, it's because it's analog. You brake, there's no ABS. You do anything, like there's no assist whatsoever, no traction control, nothing. You drive, you learn, you made your own mistakes, which is fun about this car. And it's a good cruiser. I do a 3-hour drive pretty much every 2 weeks in this car. Really comfortable. It does not hurt my back, so there's no drone even with the exhaust leak on this car, which would make a good sound, honestly. No drone. And yeah, I find this car to be so much fun and very comfortable. So when I cruise on the highway, no back pain. For example, if I ride in the Civic, which my dad have, I will start having some back pain at around 1 hour and a half of riding in the Civic, because the seats are just not as good than the seat in this Nissan. So that's something to take into consideration if you do long road trips. These Versas are fuel, they will drink some fuel, but they are so good when it comes to riding, driving, dynamics, comfort. So definitely looking look at one of these, and if you look at here what we have a S2000 on Enki RPF ones. Wow, this looks so good. Look at that. Wow, man. So these definitely went up in value. So I was looking at these S2000s back like in 2020, and they were like $18,000 Canadian, $15,000 Canadian, and now they are in the 40s. So yeah, definitely some crazy stuff going into the S2000 market. So yeah, honestly, missed the boat on those one. We'll never have one probably with the pricing on these. But yeah. So yeah, so to conclude the driving segments, honestly, so quiet, so comfortable. Just great, honestly. For what it is, for subcompact, it really handles like a compact car. It feels bigger than it is. It feels like a big car compared to what it is. It feels like a Civic more. And yeah, it has great handling, great dynamics. So when it comes to driving, I basically have nothing to say on this car other than it maybe would need a bit more power in the top end. So if you're looking at like more than 80-90 kilometers an hour, I would like to have a bit more oomph to the power, so easier to pass on the highway and easier to have some fun with the car at higher speeds. But honestly, other than that, I have nothing to say about the driving dynamics of this car. It's really good, it's great, and I recommend it, honestly. So yeah, that's it for the driving segments, and honestly, it's good. And as you can see, I've done 246 kilometers and I'm half a tank, so I will be able to do maybe 500 kilometers and then put like 44 liters in the tank. So yeah, drinks a lot of fuel, but not that bad if you compare to like V6 or V8s or even turbo car if you're going fast. So yeah, and also the 17s help a little bit to like use less fuels than the stock 14. So with the stock 14, I would use way more fuel than with those 17s. So that's also a thing to take into consideration. And also, yeah, if you hear the radio for 1 second. Okay, it's enough. You have less than 7 seconds on YouTube. So that was it. But it's pretty good for the radio. I mean, pretty good for what it is. Okay, so I'll show you more what you can expect for normal acceleration in this car. Just accelerating normally. So as you can see, no issue to merge with traffic, even at higher speeds. So yeah. Okay, so what can I say in summary about these first generation Nissan Versa? All I can say is that they're cheap cars, so you can find them anywhere from like $1,000 to like $9,000 in really great shape. So they're really cheap cars, and they make really good first car for students or people who want to get into cars and just want a cheap way to start. So especially if you choose the manual option. So in terms of handling, they're surprising. They handle really well for what they are. So they look pretty good, I think, especially when well taken care of. I think they can look pretty good with some black accents and some bigger tires and wheels. And really, handling is the key factor about these cars. I think that they are surprising for what they are. Of course, it's not a sports car, but for a basic economy car, this is really a surprising car when it comes to handling. So if you want to get into cars, start to learn how to drive, these cars is a really good way to go, because they're cheap, they're reliable, and they are fun to drive. Honestly, the seating position is pretty high, but you get used to it, and they're really fun car to zip around. So as you saw in the little driving portion of the video, of course I was alone, I couldn't do a really big driving portion, but as you can see, they are peppy car and a car that are fun to drive. So I cannot say enough how good this car can handle for like the cheapest way, so the price point that they are. So that's something I can say about one of these. So if you're looking to for one of these, again, other than the CVT, there's not a lot of things to avoid. Every model year is good. So 06 to 2012 are pretty good, and the first generation is really my favorite generation of Versa, except maybe the new one, like the 2020 to 2023 generation. These look good, but of course I would like to have them in 5-speed manual form. So other than that, what I can say about the Versa, of course the upgrade that I did were one of the best for cheap that you can do, because when you do wheels you can always sell them back, and when you do like tinted windows and LED headlights, it's just cheap upgrade that are fun to do, and that they don't break the bank, of course. So in summary, I've really enjoyed my experience and my 3.5 years of ownership over this first generation Nissan Versa, and I'm looking towards to the years coming where I'll start modding more this car a little bit, and I'll be keeping it for a long time, and hopefully not using it in the winter to keep it clean and looking as good as it is right now. So yeah, if you're looking for a first car, Nissan Versa definitely a good way to go for cheap, to have a fun car with some decent power, decent handling capabilities. I really think that these are one of the best cheap car you can find, because they're often not that beat up. They're often owned by older people, by women. So yeah, definitely something to look for when you're looking for your first car, and I've really enjoyed my journey with one of these. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'm looking towards to you in the next video. Ciao ciao.